Hey everybody, it is Joe, and welcome back to another episode of the Inside Our Phillies podcast. Today we are not here to talk about a series, but we're here to have some predictions about the second half for the Phillies, and we're here with Should Have Had Giles today. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good.
Good, good. Glad you're doing well, and glad to be with everybody today on the podcast. So the plan that we have is we're gonna start by going over some of the players' season so far and giving them a grade on like an A to F scale on how their season is going, and then we'll get into some fun over unders for what we think is going to happen throughout the rest of the season. So. Let's jump into it and kind of go through the lineup, and we'll start with the catcher of the team. And I'll give this one to you first, Giles. JT Realmuto, where are you grading him on an A to F scale so far this season?
I'm probably going to give JT a B. He's on track for over 2 F4. He's been pretty competent offensively. He's about league average. He's hitting the hell out of right-handed pitching still. He just can't hit left-handers for whatever reason this year. His defense is still okay-ish. His framing's gotten better from last year, although that isn't really a particularly hard bar to clear. So, he's not 2022 JT Realmuto, but he's still a very, very capable player, and I'm glad the Phillies still have him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you look at his OPS plus over the last few years. 2022 was really just an incredible year, where his OPS plus was 130. But 23, 105, 24, 106, 25. 95. So there really hasn't been that much change in JT over the last few years, and we have seen him get hot towards the end of the season recently, and I hope we see that again this year. So I'd agree with your B on there. Now we'll go over to first base, and I think this is one of the guys that's harder to rank. Bryce Harper. I personally would have Bryce Harper as an I for incomplete, just because it's really hard to give him a grade based on how the season has actually gone for him. But if you put a gun to my head, have to give me, something, I'd probably go B minus. He probably moved himself up from a C plus with this most recent series against the Angels. But Bryce Harper, the power hasn't been there when you look at the overall stats. The body language from him, not great this year. He's hard to rank, though. Where would you have him?
About the same as you. I'd probably say a B for when he's been on the field. He's still got 2 F4 despite missing, a ton of time this season, only having 71 games. He's still walking a ton. He's still not striking out. It's just the power, like you said, mainly in the home run department isn't there. I mean, he's still slugging 491 this season. It's just he's not hitting the home runs anymore. It's kind of more gap to gap doubles, opposite way, off the wall type stuff. So he's still a really outstanding hitter. It's just not coming in the form of home runs. And of course, the injuries have been concerning.
Yeah, and I said this in the most recent episode, but it's good to see that he's been a little bit further ahead of the fastballs. Like, I feel like when Bryce Harper's not going well, he's just late to everything, right?
Yep.
So the fact that he hasn't been late recently, that encourages me on what he could do in the second half. And I think that it wouldn't surprise either of us if he ended up being somewhere in like the B plus, A minus range when the season comes to an end.
You know, and come on, didn't we all just kind of know subconsciously when he had that game at the end of the All-Star, near the All-Star break, where he went 4 for 4 with 3 doubles, I think, and a home run all to left field? That was like, oh, okay, Bryce is back here. Like,
Yeah,
that's just
he
always
announced
what
it.
happens. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, really, overall, every year you really can't worry too much about Bryce Harper, and you're seeing like a little bit of deterioration in terms of like the bat speed and exit velocity and stuff like that. But he's still one of the premier players in this league. Somebody who's not a premier player in this league is the second baseman of this team, Bryson Stott. What grade would you give Bryson?
Oh man, this hurts me to say, but probably a C minus. Um, he's still going to finish as about like maybe 1.7 F4 as a player. Of course, he's still incredibly valuable as a defender. But man, I keep saying, like, I don't think he's bad as a hitter as he's been playing, but he keeps somehow proving me wrong. And it's just incredibly frustrating to watch him at the plate. I remember my young mind remembers people calling like Jimmy Rollins in 2010 Jimmy Pop-Ups. And that's basically Bryson Stott's becoming. It's just pop up, pop up, pop up, weak into the outfield or on the infield over and over. And I mean, it's getting to and well, I can't say it's Rojas levels futility, but it's pretty amazing levels of futility at the plate for him right now, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm more of a baseball reference guy, and Bryson Stott, he has a tenth of a baseball reference WAR up to
Oof.
this point this year, so he's looking at a .2 B WAR pace. So I probably would be more in the D territory. Um,
Yeah.
we never thought he was going to hit for power, and that's not really what bothers me. But what bothers me is just like the at bats are getting worse, right? He can still draw a long at bat, but it doesn't feel like he's ever really looking to strike as much as he's looking to
Yeah.
just extend the at bat.
Yeah. It keeps getting worse somehow. Like I said, it just keeps finding a way to prove me wrong, and it just keeps going further down the pit. It's not fun to watch for him right now.
Do you think he should be optioned? I know there was some talk about that, and they said that they weren't considering it, but I don't
I,
hate the idea.
I don't think. See, the issue is if this was like a mechanical thing, like say Brett Myers in '08 or something, where sending him down actually you can see it having a really large benefit to him. His stuff's still good. It's just something's not quite right with him. Bryson Stott has just never had in any of his years here like the tools to be an average or above average major league hitter. I just don't see what's gonna fix for him in the minors outside of maybe
Attacking the
hitting
ball.
yeah, attacking off some lower level pitching. He's going to see lower level fastballs, so his numbers are going to increase. It's just his swing's too slow.
Yeah.
Unless he can find a way to shorten his swing. And I think that's the best way to do that is with Kevin Long, frankly. Uh, it, I trust the Phillies org more. I think they know more about it than we do. What I see from him, I don't know if it's correctable just by sending him to AAA. I don't believe AAA is like a recovery station for struggling major leaguers.
It's almost like he needs to bulk and be able to like get some extra arm strength to be able to like
Yep.
increase that swing speed because you're right. If you look at like the baseball savant percentiles, he's towards the bottom of the league as far as how hard he actually swings the bat, which like you said, hard to correct by sending him just down to AAA. Um, Up next, you got the shortstop. People didn't want him to be the shortstop going into this year, but he is, and he's had, I think, a great year. Trey Turner, to me, this is an easy A. Defensively, he's pretty much done a complete 180. He'll still do some kind of crazy, boneheaded play where he just misplays a ball hit right to him, like every 3 weeks. But other than that, he's been great. His range is really what makes him a valuable defensive shortstop, and he is a valuable defensive shortstop this year. And offensively, 288, it's pretty good. 11 home runs, I'll take it. Um, this is a pretty good Trey Turner year. Maybe not what we thought was going to be the best year of his career. I think we all wanted like more like a 320 hitter, but still, this is an A for me.
Well, I'm going to give Trey Turner an A plus from me. I'm just gonna I use Fangraphs, so it's what I'm comfortable with. He's on pace for almost 8 F4 this season, and he has a WRC plus of 115 this year. There's just really not much more you could ask for Trey Turner this year. His walk rate's up dramatically over last year. His strikeout percentage, in terms of where it was, just even last year is down. Notably, it's down heavily from 2023. So he has just improved sort of every single year here in that department and in the walks department. Um, he's been unbelievable this year. He's been their best player, and I think anybody who's denying it or acting like Trey Turner's still a letdown somehow this year is just they have a predetermined narrative that they have in their heads, and they're unwilling to see anything else. Trey Turner's been awesome this year.
I think if somebody does want to complain about Trey Turner, they can point to the slugging a little bit. His slugging is
Mhm.
down 40 points compared to last year, 30 points to 2023. And that's really what causing his OPS to be, comparatively low at a 112. If you
Mhm.
look at his career as a Philly, Trey Turner's OPS plus is let me pull this up. So 114. And then you look at his career, as a whole, and his OPS plus is a 120. So he is like slightly behind his career OPS plus, and a lot of that, poor OPS plus you see was 2015 where he was a 69.
Yep.
But before that, 2020 on 162, 145, and then 124. So all three of his years as a Philly are worse offensively than after that. But I'm kind of just, picking straws here. It's hard to complain about how Trey Turner's been at shortstop. It's a shortstop,
So
right? Any kind of offensive
yeah.
production is a bonus.
So if I could add like two things into that, I think there's two factors maybe playing a role in that. One is I think I might be wrong, is that this year is sort of a more down year for offense, so that could be playing a role in it.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, he can't hit home runs at Citizens Bank Park this year. I don't know why. Maybe he sacrificed his ability to do that to have good defense at shortstop this season. And, maybe it is also him just sort of cutting down on the swing more this year and focusing on more on just trying to cut down on the strikeouts. So he's not trying to swing for power as much. He's just trying to put the ball in play more this year. And that's just me I'm just kind of speculating on that. But yeah, that maybe is the only area I might have a little bit of complaint with Trey, but like you said, it's nitpicking.
Yeah, and overall, hard to be upset about that year we're getting out of Trey Turner. So to complete the starting infielders, we have Alec Boehm at third base on the injured list right now, but he's been the starting third baseman all year. So what would you say about Boehm?
Boehm's tough. Boehm and I'm just going to say this as well. Boehm and Marsh are both going to be tough because you have to take into account their Aprils. And if we're taking into account, I'm going to just do something. I'm going to grade April. Boehm was an F. Boehm since April is a B. Boehm right now is overall season, I'd say C plus B minus. He's about a league average hitter when you take into account April, but he's got a WRC plus of around 125 or so since April, and that's just fantastic. You'd love to see that from him. But of course, April did happen. We have to take it into account for a whole season grade, so I'd say it's probably about a C plus or a B minus.
Yeah, I mean, let's go over his OPS by month. OPS in March, those couple of games, 616. OPS in April, terrible month, like you said, a 508. 873
Oof.
in May. Down a little bit since May, 752 in June, 741 in July. So I think I'm pretty much with you. I think I'd give him a C. I think the tricky part with Boehm, right, is because he's kind of won his ARB cases, he's getting paid probably more than the Phillies would want him to get paid
Yep.
in his second year of arbitration. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the offseason with Boehm, because typically you're going to get a pretty big raise going from your second year to third year of arbitration. And you could make an argument that Boehm, who will probably worth somewhere around like 1.5 B-WAR this year, isn't going to be worth that raise. But that'll depend on Aiden Miller coming up and all kinds of different stuff. But Boehm's to see. I think that this is pretty much what you got to expect out of Boehm. A really great month in there. And
yeah. I think that they should, just if I can say this real quick, I think for the offseason, they should probably just keep him around for one more year. There's not really any, I've seen glaring, obvious replacements for him in the offseason. Aiden Miller seems like he's still maybe a year and a half away. So, he's not great, and I think everybody realizes this now, but he is certainly serviceable, and you're not a nightmare to have at third base. He's perfectly fine.
His defense has been so improved, too. I mean, from a guy that was bottom first percentile defensively in the league to now be, he's not a great defensive third baseman, but he's average to slightly above average. Really incredible what he's done there.
Yeah, I really haven't seen any player kind of improve like that. I'm so used to seeing guys come to us, whether they come through the minor leagues or free agency, and their defense just stays the way it always is throughout their entire career. So yeah, it's amazing to see somebody genuinely improve on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's now that we got through the infield, which I think is one of the team's strengths. What's definitely not a strength is the outfield. Let's start in left field with Max Kepler.
Oh boy! So I want to preface this because I just want to preface this by saying I was really high on the Kepler signing. I was really high on it. His peripherals looked good, even in the first month. It looked good then, and it just has never panned out. And he's just bad. Everything's just below average. It's not terrible below average, but it's below average. And I'd have to give him a D minus or an F. A D minus only because he's not getting paid a ton of money, and it's just sort of a reclamation project. So it wasn't like we're expecting this dude to be one of the dudes in the lineup. It was sort of we think this guy could be a guy for us, but it's not the end of the world if he isn't type deal.
Yeah, they say there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, but
Yep.
I would put him as an F, just because $10 million is a lot, and with the luxury tax, essentially you're paying 110% extra in tax on that, so essentially the Phillies are paying $22 million for his services, even though he's only getting $10 million of that, or $21 million, but it's not great. Not great return on the spend that they did there. And he looks like he doesn't want to be here. He wants out, and I think he'll get his wish granted pretty soon.
Yep.
So now let's go to center field. And before we talk about Marsh, who I know you got a lot to say about, what about Rojas? He hasn't played a lot recently, but he has still been with the team for the whole season.
So Rojas is a D minus only by way of having very good defense in center and base running. If they were not very good to elite levels, he would immediately get an F minus because of just how horrifyingly bad his offense is. I mean, I just want to put some numbers for people so we can like really have an idea of how awful he is offensively. Because you look at his batting average, and if you just look at his batting average, it's like, oh, he's bad, but whatever. I mean, he's slugging under 300. That is amazing levels of futility, like unheard of. But yet somehow his F4 is still 0.3 because his defense is just that good. But he's just been unwatchably bad at the plate. I mean, there's a reason why the Phillies are playing Marsh in center against right-handers, and it's because the less times you have to have Johan Rojas at the plate, the better for the team.
Yeah, and you are seeing him play less. His BABIP in that first year, 2023, was unsustainable. It was a 410.
Yep.
So that inflated, everybody's expectations of Johan Rojas, and then the last couple of years, 297, 295. So pretty much what you'd expect out of somebody BABIP-wise. This is who he is. I'm not surprised, so I can't give him an F because I think there's still value there as like a defensive replacement. Not that the Phillies seem to care about defensive replacements anymore. But
Welcome to that.
I'll give Rojas a D.
Yep, I agree with that.
So now we'll go over to Marsh. And I'll say with Marsh, I've always been a big Marsh guy. The talent is there, the personality, great. He's not one of the people on the team that sulk, which can get a little irritating for me to watch personally. And it's kind of the inverse of Bohm in some ways, in that he was really bad for a couple months, but right now he's looking great. And he's hitting the ball hard, and I think that his career has kind of shown us that while he is a streaky hitter, he's a good hitter, and he is a good defensive corner outfielder, not center outfielder. But I can't give him too high of a grade. This year's been rough for him. I'm going C minus for Brandon Marsh.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go a C. I'm going to say the biggest thing that's jumping out to me, just looking at his Fangraphs page, is how much he has dropped his strikeout rate from last year. Last year it was 32%. This year it's about 24.5%. That is a massive drop off in the amount of strikeouts he is dealing with, which you love to see, because that was the biggest issue with his game. Is it just felt like, okay, here's Brandon Marsh. It's either going to be a hard hit ball or it's going to be a strikeout, and now it's not really that anymore. He had the really off, like I think worse than Bohm in some ways, first month or so of the season, where he had the injury then and he had to get sent down to the minors for a while. And it's like, is this the end of Brandon Marsh in Philadelphia? Which I really didn't think. He's been good for basically his entire time here, but you had people saying that. Yeah, he's bounced back. But like you said, there's that first month is just so awful. You have to look at the season as a whole. I think I'd agree with you giving him a C. He can easily upgrade his grade to a B, though, by season's end, in my opinion.
I expect that to happen. I expect the Phillies to make some kind of transaction that you're not seeing as much Brandon Marsh in center field, which I think will be a better fit for him defensively. That'll allow him to focus more on the offensive side of the ball. And the Phillies are getting, in a lot of ways, what people wanted, a team that just put the ball in play and didn't hit for power. And I don't know if people regret wishing for that, but they're getting what they wanted there. So now we'll go to right field. I think this is, for me, the hardest one to rank. So I'll pass it over to you first. And that's Nick Castellanos.
I'm going to take a deep breath here. F. Just immediate F for me. Nick Castellanos, we recently had a post on the Reddit that showed him as the worst player by outs above average in baseball. He has currently on Fangraphs negative 0.1 F4, despite being a league average hitter, which I just want to say for people, that is incredibly hard to do, to be a negative F4 player while being a league average hitter.
Because your average player should be worth about 2 WAR, just for reference.
Yeah, and that might be baseball for Fangraphs, like your replacement level player. So, like, I guess an Otto Kemp is about 0 F4. That's kind of like the idea. So Castellanos is performing worse than a replacement level player this year, although just barely. So it's terrible. It's been terrible except for about 3 months last year and maybe 3 or 4 months in 2023. It's been a terrible time here, and I'm so ready to see this guy go. I'm I really hope that somehow they are able to move on from him in the offseason. I'm kind of glad. I'm not glad that he's sucking. I wish, because if Castellanos plays better, the team's going to play better. But I'm kind of glad the fan base now is sort of awaking from this haze and realizing, wow, this guy is just not that good. Because he's just so frustrating to watch. I hate every aspect of his game. The less said about him, the better, frankly, for me.
He's immensely frustrating because you're right that he should have value based on his offensive production, especially from the right side, since the Phillies struggle a lot to hit from the right side. But his defense, his base running, especially the defense, completely tanks the value. Like literally completely tanks the value. So, well, I like Castellanos as a person. It's never felt quite like the right fit. And I'm still pretty upset about the whole arguing with Rob Thompson about getting subbed out as a defensive replacement.
Can I just comment on that real quick?
Yeah.
I only played baseball until I was about 16, and it was only ever on sort of non-competitive leagues. But like the one rule, my dad gave me two rules basically, and I was a very emotional player when I played, but I always tried to follow these two rules. First one was don't argue with the umpires, and the second one was don't yell at or argue with your manager / coach. Don't ever do that, ever. What they say goes. You don't yell at the person who's in just life general. You don't yell at your boss, you know, and especially for a move that made sense. It wasn't like, screw you, Nick Castellanos. I don't like you. I'm going to screw you over somehow.
They're just trying to win games.
They're just trying to win games, and he's getting pissy about that. And there's a quote that this is going into football territory, but like Larry Fitzgerald's trying to get a certain amount of yards or catches in this game. And, he's like, he goes to Kurt Warner. It's like, yo, Kurt, you're going to give me the ball so that I can try and like get this stat, right? And, Warner's response to him apparently was, yeah, but what about winning the game? So like, it feels like you care more about you than actually the team when you act like that. And I can't stand that.
What the Phillies should do is, because, he's been so bad in right field. And I've talked on this podcast before about how like the whole right field thing doesn't make sense. Someone with a weak arm like him should be in left field instead. But irregardless of that, why isn't Kyle Schwarber playing the field? Like, Kyle Schwarber has been taken out as a defensive replacement. He didn't complain about it. And he is in much better shape this year when he is playing in the outfield. It doesn't look all that bad. So why not DH Castellanos, put Schwarber in the outfield, and then you can just take out Schwarber for a defensive replacement in the ninth inning. He's not going to make a big stink about it.
Well, I'm sure that if Castellanos had a bruise to his ego that large, he might actually burn down the clubhouse. So, I get that it's one instance of it happening, but if you're going to behave like that over something as small as that happening, I don't trust you to handle something like that well, not become just a toxic clubhouse presence. I mean, that does matter to an extent. And also, I just don't know that the difference between Schwarber out and left and Castellanos out and right is going to be that significant. And I also wonder how much Schwarber's better health and better running has to do with him just never playing the field. I wonder that a little bit. So it's tough. I can definitely see the argument for it. But overall, I think I'd just leave it as is and just try to cut bait this offseason. Like, literally just eat the last season of the contract and try and find a replacement for him.
They might have to do that. But yeah, that's fair. So let's go to some of the pitchers now. We're not going to go through every relief pitcher because I think a lot of these are going to be pretty easy Fs, but we'll go with the starters first, and we'll go with Zach Wheeler first. This is easy, right?
Yep, A. This doesn't really need to be discussed. Zach Wheeler's amazing. He's the best pitcher for this team in the last 14 years since Roy Halladay. It's just not really close.
Christopher Sanchez, another A, right?
Yep, another A. I know. I thought, last year it was like, okay, this is who Christopher Sanchez is. This is awesome. Yeah, and it's just been like another level unlocked this year, and it's really amazing. By the way, Phillies player development. For the people who say our minor leagues never produce anything, we produced Christopher Sanchez. We didn't draft him, but we definitely created Christopher Sanchez as he is today, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. The rest of the starting pitchers, a little bit tougher. Jesus Luzardo, where are you at on him?
Oh boy, Jesus Luzardo. I'm gonna have to say, for an up and down guy, I'm gonna give him an up and down grade. It's a C. When he's on, he's really on. When he's off, it's unwatchable. And really, that's not the end of the world to have as your fourth starter. If your fourth starter going out there is either like an ace or he's just awful, that's fine, really, because the fourth starter is going to see at most like what, 2 starts in the playoffs. So it's not the end of the world to me.
I'm with you. I think C is right for now, just because of how good he was for quite a while early in the year. But with that being said, I would probably bet the under, or the I think he'll end up lower
Yep.
than a C. I think he'll end
Mhm.
up in like the D territory by the end of the year.
Yep.
Is what I mean by that.
I
Um,
That being said, even if he does, I would like the Phillies to try and go and get him back for next year because I really do think that a lot of the issues you're seeing right now is where from not having thrown a lot of innings last year. I think he only, like I said on the previous time he was on, he's only thrown 60 innings last year. So I think you're seeing a little bit of tiring out right now from Luzardo. I would definitely be interested in seeing them bring him back at least for next season, maybe on like another 1 or 2 year deal.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he does have 1 year left of
Oh
arbitration, I
yeah, that's
believe.
right.
So
Yeah.
they do have that team control, and I feel like they're definitely going to offer him a contract. He's not going to be a non-tender candidate.
Yep.
But somebody who does have an expiring contract is Ranger Suarez. I would give him right now like a B minus. It's hard because he missed a fair amount of time, and he has been generally very good, but he does look tired. You're kind of seeing the potential of the typical Ranger Suarez wear down as the season goes on. We're used to that by now, so I'm probably at like a B minus just because he missed that time. But if it wasn't for that, he'd probably be a B plus.
Yeah. So I'd definitely say he's a B minus. The thing that's just weird about Ranger is it's like you can tell immediately when he's going to have a stinker just by where his pitches are going. It's obvious. Another thing that's just been concerning this year is in fact the steady drop of velocity. There is a point where your location can only do so much for you. You have to throw harder to be successful in the modern, baseball. Right now he's fine, but I do worry about that continuing to drop as the year goes on from fatigue or maybe trying to mitigate like the back that he has, because that just sounds like it's chronic at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a B minus C plus is right for Ranger right now. His overall free agency value, that's in the toilet though for me. But right now, his performance this season, definitely solid. Glad he's here. B minus or C plus.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not really interested in Ranger Suarez coming back here as a free agent. Like, give him the qualifying offer. He's not going to take it, and if he
Yep.
does, cool. But
Yep.
I'm
Give
ready
him
to
a
move on.
give him a shortish sort of team friendly prove it deal. If he doesn't want to take that, fine.
Yep, yep.
Go get
Um,
Schwarber back.
that's a whole separate story, Kyle Schwarber, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I missed
Right.
that when we were going through the offense. So Kyle Schwarber,
Yeah.
probably an A, right? Like, don't really need to talk about that one too
Oh, A
much.
plus. A plus. Absolutely A plus. Schwarber is just again, sort of like Sanchez, just hit a totally different level this season. He's never even really been close to this good when he's been with us. He's a DH with 3.1 F4 so far, hitting 58% above league average by WRC plus, which is he's just awesome. If you don't like Kyle Schwarber, I'm going to just say you're not a Phillies fan, or you should just stop being one. Kyle Schwarber is a god. He's amazing. He had, just for people's reference, he had 38 home runs through all of last year. He has 32 already this year. I don't usually care about RBIs, but he had 104 last year. He already has 74 this year. He's nearly doubled his stolen base total from last year. Kyle Schwarber, known speed demon, and his strikeouts are down even this year. So it's
Yeah,
just been an awesome year for him this year.
it's pretty tough to have a 3 WAR by the end of July as a DH just because the positional adjustment is so negative for
Yep.
DHs. But he's done it, which is pretty incredible. So that was an easy one. But going back to the rotation now, we're going to go with Taiwan Walker next.
Oh, okay. Taiwan Walker. So this is really weird for me because he's just been all over the place. But just in terms of how he's performed, we're not gonna adjust the grade for giving him benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, he's been everywhere, so I'm gonna give him benefit of the doubt and give him a higher grade. I'm gonna say he's a C minus at tops right now.
I was at C
Uh,
minus too.
yeah, he's a C minus for me. been admirable in what he's been asked to do. He's been a good soldier for the team, but he's been unspectacular.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on about Taiwan Walker. That contract might be tradable at this point if we eat some money, but with the starting rotation being what it is, I feel like we kind of need to hold on to him just as a, just as an in case. But the next guy, who is part of the reason why we have Taiwan Walker starting, is Aaron Nola, who to me is an F. He has been very poor when he's pitched this year, and when he is not pitching for months at a time now because of the myriad of injuries that he's experienced. I think he's got to be an F.
I'm going to give him, and I don't know if I'm allowed to, I'm going to give him an incomplete because I don't know how much of this, him struggling this year, is just because Nola is heavily declining as a pitcher, or if it's because of him having the injuries, like we've said, like he's dealing with. So I don't like to hold injuries really against players. If we weren't holding injuries against players and he held a gun to my head, I'd have to agree he was an F. It's really depressing to see this happen to Nola. Nola's like the first guy as a Phillies fan I watched come up and play for the team and develop and was there for his whole career type deal. Because he came up when I was like 14. I remember I went to his debut, and he's been one of my favorite guys on this team for a while. And it's a bummer to see him sort of kind of wearing down as he gets older, and especially after all the unneeded kind of stuff he had thrown at him by media and fans earlier in his career. But yeah, it's not been great this year. I really hope that is injury and we get Aaron Nola back, and we get maybe not 2022 Aaron Nola, but 24 Aaron Nola who's serviceable and eats innings well for us. But yeah, it's not been good.
Yeah, yep, I'm pretty much entirely in agreement with you there. There's nothing more beautiful than that two-seamer inside
Oh
the
God.
lefties when he's on, but just haven't seen enough of it this year. So that'll finish up the starting pitchers. We're gonna go to the bullpen now, and we're gonna start with Jordan Romano.
Oh boy. So I was a Jordan Romano defender until about mid to late June, or even just the last podcast, really. I was definitely a Romano defender. I still don't really think he should be one of the guys who gets DFA'd out of the current bullpen right now when they if they acquire a couple guys at the deadline. I don't think he's bottom 3 in the bullpen, and that says really more about the bullpen than it does Jordan Romano this year. I think Ross and Johnson and Lazar are worse than him, but that's a different set of grades. But yeah, right now it's either he's good or he comes out and he just absolutely implodes. It's like Hector Neris on steroids right now, Jordan Romano.
Yeah,
So I'd give him a D- because he does have that ability, a D or a D-. He does have that ability to be really, really good when he comes out. And most outings, he is actually good and he doesn't give up runs. But man, when he gives up runs, dude, the game's over. He just explodes.
yeah. You look at his ERA by month in March, only a couple games, but a 9 ERA in March, 12.96 in April. Great May, 2.53 ERA in May, 7.27 in June, and a 4.76 in July. So the fact that his second best month by ERA is 4.76,
Yeah.
puts me at the territory where I think I got to give him an F, which is a shame because I like Jordan Romano. The next guy that we're going to go over is Mick Abel. This should be a pretty quick one because he just hasn't had all that much experience, but he's probably going to be gone in like 10 days anyways. But Mick Abel's contributions, where are you at on that?
In terms of how he played on the field in F, I went to see him. I got to see his debut. I think I said that, but in an earlier podcast episode. But ever since that debut, even in some of his quote unquote good starts after that, it was all just smoke and mirrors and getting lucky that balls were being hit right at people. Just wasn't striking anybody out. Tons of balls hit in the air. His issue, everybody sort of pointing to AAA and going, look, he's nailing it in AAA, but it's like, yeah, but it's because he has the stuff to just overpower AAA guys. He doesn't really have to pitch to them as much. He can, because his stuff's so good. He has elite level stuff. So he can just sort of just throw the ball up down there and as long as he's throwing strikes, he's going to have success. But his issue in the majors was just everything except the fastball. He had just zero into the strike zone command over it. And that's his biggest issue. And it's not incorrectable. You can definitely fix it, which is why he's definitely still has a decent amount of trade value. I don't think his trade value was hurt at all while he was in the majors. If anything, I think it was helped a little bit just because he showed he he showed off his stuff. He showed that he could get major league hitters out at least a little bit. So I'm going to give him an F, but it doesn't mean really that I think he sucks or anything. It's just he wasn't ready yet.
Yeah. You look at Baseball Savant, you look at where he's really been struggling, and
Yep.
it's with the hard hit balls that he gives up. Hard hit rate is towards the very bottom of the league. He hasn't pitched enough to be qualified, but it would be below the fifth percentile if he was. Same with average exit velocity, barrel rate, like minus 15th percentile in the league. That's overall leading to an xERA, which is based on the quality of contact of 6.26, which
Oof.
isn't where you want to be at. So
No.
um, I'm
Better
with you
than
there.
Romano.
Yeah, it is true. That is better than Drew and Romano. So I'll take that at least. So I guess he gets an F plus. No, I don't think he's been that bad. I put him at like a D, just because I think you kind of have to expect it to some extent with him.
Mhm.
He's still figuring out his way. But next in the bullpen, we'll go with Joe Ross. This is an F, right?
F. F.
Yep.
I was looking forward to the Ross signing. There wasn't really much risk to it. It was low risk, very high reward. Joe Ross did have good stuff before coming here. It just, it's one of those reclamation projects that didn't work out. It happens. Cut bait, move on.
Yep, I'm with you there. The next guy that we'll talk about here is Orion Kerkering. I don't really get why they're not having Orion Kerkering close games, at least to see if he has the ability to do that. But he's been good. I wouldn't say I trust him with my life, but I'll trust him with my pinky finger at this point. He's earned some level of trust, and I want to see how he can handle closing games. So I'd probably have him at like a B plus.
So I'm going to put him at a B. I think his walks are still way too bad for me to really give him to a B plus, because I think he's sort of a better Hector Neris right now. Hector Neris had these long, arduous at bats, but eventually, he'd get the person out, or or he wouldn't. But eventually, he'd get the person out, and that's kind of what you're seeing with Kerkering, where he has these longer at bats because he just needs to throw that sweeper, 4 inches off the plate outside, but it's either like a backup sweeper inside, or it's 2 feet off the plate outside. And then it's like third time's a charm, and he either throws a good fastball or he throws a good sweeper. He's one of those guys where you watch him, and I think he's one of the rare guys where you watch him and he's better to watch than he is to look at on his stat sheet. Where you look at it, you watch him, you're like, damn, this guy is really good. His stuff's outstanding. But you watch him on the stat sheet, you're just like, dang, this guy walks tons of hitters. He doesn't get tons of ground balls. He's okay. But yeah, Kerkering's a B. He's definitely a lot better, I think. I think he's better than last year, personally. And I think he's taken large steps forward, especially with the sinker this year. I think I'm okay with the role they have him in. I've probably made this clear. I'm not a super big fan of like a dedicated closer. I like everybody sort of being able to come in at any point in the game whenever it's needed. So, yep, B seems right to me for Kerkering.
Sure. The next guy I think we're going to have a little bit below a B, at least I will, and that's Matt Strom. I don't think anybody was expecting Matt Strom to be 2024 Matt Strom again, but I think people
Mhm.
were expecting something a little bit closer to 2023 Matt Strom maybe.
Mhm.
And that just hasn't been the case, unfortunately. So I would probably put Matt Strom at like a C plus B minus. Like I think he can still be a valuable part of the bullpen, and he has been a valuable part of the bullpen. But I don't feel great about him being the top lefty, and that's really where Alvarado's suspension and lack of ability to participate in the postseason could really hurt this team.
So I'm going to give him a B this year. So for all his issues, namely his K per 9 coming down by a full 1, it's still at 10.3, but it was 11.3 last year. His walks coming up by over 1 to about 2.75, which is still really good. But his ground ball rate dropping by 8% is what's really killing him right now. He still has an expected ERA of 2.97. And so he's still a good pitcher. It's just it feels a lot. I think it feels a lot worse than it is, just because of how unbelievably good he was in 2024. Like right now, he actually has a lower ERA just by like a tick than he did in 2023. So he's not 2024 Strom, but he's still a very good relief pitcher for them. Like you said, what's really hurting them is the fact that Alvarado is an idiot and went got himself suspended for 80 games in the entire playoffs. If
Yeah,
that didn't happen, we wouldn't be talking about this. So I give him a B, but yeah, taken a step back from last year, but to be expected.
2025 Strom's not really a pitcher made for Citizens Bank Park just because he has such
Yep.
a high fly ball rate, and fly balls can fly out of Citizens Bank Park like a few other parks. So
Yep.
he's doing okay, all things considered, but he's probably more of a Oracle Park guy. Imagine how good he'd be over there.
Yeah, Oracle. Yep. He'd be outstanding.
So, who am I missing in the bullpen? I know I'm missing
Tanner
a couple
Banks.
guys still. Yeah, Tanner Banks. That's a good one. Where are you at on Tanner Banks?
I'm going to give him a B minus. Big surprise for me this year. Didn't think he was going to be that good. He's been a really great seventh inning dude. Shouldn't be anything other than a seventh inning dude. If he's anything other than that on your team, you have issues. But as a seventh inning guy, he's been really great. As a third lefty out of the bullpen, which is what he should have been, he's been great. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. So I give him a B.
Yeah, he has been better, but I feel like recently, he hasn't been great.
Yeah.
4.5 ERA in July, so maybe we're seeing some regression to the mean. Maybe we're just seeing him get a little bit unlucky. I haven't really taken a look at the numbers deeply enough to know one way or the other.
I haven't either. I'm just kind of going off of what I've, remember from him this year at this point. But yeah, he's been a lot better than I think anybody thought he was going to be this year. So pleasant surprise, Tanner Banks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be really happy with anything, and I probably, compared to the expectations, would give him like a B plus, A minus, but for just on an even footing, I probably would give him like a B minus, probably around the same as you there. So I think we kind of covered all the main guys in the bullpen, right? Unless I'm missing someone, because there's no point in covering the Max Lazars and Seth Johnson.
I think I will say on a quick Seth Johnson note, I think as Seth Johnson gets better command of his slider, I think he's going to be really good. It looks like he has pretty decent fastball command. He throws upper 90s. If his secondary pitch just gets a little bit better, I think he can be a pretty serviceable guy in the pen for us in the future.
Yeah, the potential's there more than it is with like the Alan Ronhells of the world and Brett DeGus's of the world and stuff like that.
Michael Mercado.
Michael Mercado is exactly, that's a good one. So I think we're in agreement there. And I guess the one guy maybe we're missing out on is Edmundo Sosa, who's probably like the number one guy off the bench for this team. I'm happy with Edmundo Sosa. I think he's been great. Inconsistent, but overall great. He's like an A minus for me for the expectations we have.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, for the role he's supposed to play in this team, which is sort of play anywhere on the infield type dude, I'm gonna give him an A. It's just he is one of the best utility guys in baseball. He absolutely should not be starting every day, but as a utility guy, you really can't get much better for Edmundo Sosa. And just a reminder, once again for everybody, we got Edmundo Sosa for the horrifying price of Jojo Romero. So I think that funny enough, probably a bad thing, but I think that's the best trade Dombrowski's made while he's here, but it's a pretty darn good one.
Really is. Edmundo Sosa is an unbelievably valuable player. I'm sure he'd be starting on a lot of rosters across the league. So as long as we have him, I'm going to feel really lucky to have him off of the bench. So now let's kind of transition into some fun over-unders that I wanted to bring to you today and, kind of make some predictions for the rest of this year. And the first one that I have is over or under 2.5 hitters with at least 20 home runs on the Phillies by the end of the year. Kyle Schwarber's already there, 32. Bryce Harper's second, 13. Castellanos, 12. Turner, 11. Kepler, 10. And nobody else has more than 8. So will the Phillies end up with over or under 2.5 hitters with at least 20 home runs on the Phillies this year?
So, like you said, Schwarber's already there. Harper's going to get there. I really don't have, barring injury, of course, I don't really have any doubt that Harper's going to get to 20 home runs. The big question mark there is Castellanos. If he ends up going like cold, he's not going to get there. He's already kind of crawling towards that because he's been playing all season. He only has 13. Harper's missed like month and a half. So I'm going to, just because I am a Castellanos hater, I'm going to say under. I think it's just going to be Schwarber and Harper this year. Long live the small ball. I hope everybody is happy with it.
If anybody has a chance, I think it's going to be Trey Turner. He's at 11 right now. Trey Turner has gone on a power surge before where he hits 4 home runs in a week, and if he does something like that, he could easily get to 20. But I am with you that I'll take the under. The one thing to maybe keep a lookout on here is if the Phillies make a trade for a power hitter. Like if Eugenio Suarez is on this team in a week, he might get to 20 as a Philly. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility that something like that would happen. Just in the August and September and a couple games there are in October. But I think under is the smart call there. So the next one that we have is over or under 4.5 starts by Andrew Painter in 2025.
I'm going to say under. I don't think Andrew Painter's coming to the big leagues this season, barring like series of injuries. He hasn't really shown that he is ready to come back yet. His stuff is still there. He's still throwing hard enough. He hasn't really lost any velocity on his fastball. It's just that it's kind of straight right now, which is not something that's too difficult to rectify. Somebody as talented as him and with the Phillies pitching labs that they have. But it's just sort of location issues right now and seems like kind of a lot of rust from being gone for nearly 2 years from pitching. So it's something to monitor. If he's struggling next year, I'll be concerned. But I don't think he's coming up this year. I think they're just going to let him cook in AAA, let him work things out. Don't rush him.
I'm with you. I don't think he's coming up this year. I think the Phillies put themselves in a little bit of an awkward position by saying July or sometime late in the year. Like they really made it seem like he's going to come up. But looking at the body of work in AAA, like it's hard to say that he deserves it. The control hasn't been there, and I don't think people should just completely lose faith in Andrew Painter. But I don't think this is the year that he's going to be part of the rotation for the Phillies. The next one is about the guy the Phillies just signed, David Robertson. I have an over/under 3.5 ERA for David Robertson on the Phillies in 2025.
I'm gonna say over, but not like he's gonna suck. I'm gonna think it's gonna be like a 3.7 or a 3.8 for David Robertson. He's 40. There's gonna be some wear down. I think there's a reason teams hadn't signed him besides the fact that his contract was too much. I don't think like the only reason was, he wants $15 million or whatever it was. So I think he's going to be serviceable and a good pickup for them. There's no risk involved in the pickup. I think anybody who is like upset somehow about this pickup, you need to take a breather because this is just a zero risk, all the reward type pickup for the Phillies. It's only like a little bit of money that they have to pay him. So I'll say over, but not by a lot.
Yeah, here's a stat courtesy of Matt Gelb. David Robertson in the first half of 2022 to 2024, that's 117 and a third innings pitched. He had a 2.30 ERA in the first half. And in the second half of the season, from 22 to 24, he's at a 3.55 ERA, and that's over 83 and 2/3 innings pitched. So there's a pretty big difference there between Robertson in the first half and the second half. So I'm going to go under, just because hopefully we get that first half Robertson, and even though he's 40 years old, his arm is not going to be tired like somebody's arm would normally be at the end of July. And I am really optimistic that he's going to take down some big innings for the Phillies this year.
Yep.
So the next one I have, and I'm going to go on this one first, is over or under 1.5 top 5 Cy Young vote getters. And I don't mean that this person gets like a vote in the top 5. It's that they finish in the top 5 of the Cy Young voting in the National League. I'm going to go over. I think that Wheeler is going to be 1 or 2. It'll be him or Skeens that win it, and the other one's going to come in second. And I think Sanchez is more likely than not to end up in the top 5 as well. So I'm going to take the over on that.
I could see either one here. I'm really, really torn. Just the part of my brain that's like, well, the Phillies, they never get 2 guys in the top 5 Cy Young vote getters. But then it's like, well, Sanchez does deserve to get into it. So that I'm going to let that side of my brain win out here. I'm going to say they're going to get over. Sanchez absolutely deserves it. Wheeler, hopefully he wins it. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Skeens is also deserving. But there's definitely going to be 2 guys in the top 5 Cy Young vote getters. This rotation's awesome. That's all I want to say. This rotation's amazing, that they have something like this.
Absolutely. And then one more that I have is Jordan Romano. Over under Jordan Romano being here for 10.5 more days. So basically, when we come to the end of the trade deadline, is Jordan Romano still a Philly at the end of the day on August 1st, the day after the trade deadline?
So I might be missing something, and I think I touched on this earlier. I don't see Romano as worse than Lazar, Ross, or Johnson right now. So unless they are going to go out and acquire 3 more relievers, Romano isn't the odd guy out yet. So, and like I said, that's more against the overall state of the bullpen than it is about him being good or something. I don't think he has earned his roster spot here if this was a good bullpen. it isn't, and as such, he has the ability to still stick around here. I think he's still going to be around, and the meltdowns on the WIP airwaves, if Jordan Romano is still around after the deadline, will be like apocalyptic. But I think there's a 55-60% chance that he still is here. So I'm going to go with over.
I'm going to say he's not. And the reason I say that is because I don't think there's really any chance he's going to be pitching a high leverage innings for the Phillies in the postseason. And if he's not doing that, you might as well see if anybody picks him up and can save the Phillies some money that way. If you release him and somebody makes a waiver claim and they pay a salary for the rest of the year, Phillies don't have to pay it anymore. And, Phillies aren't a cheap franchise, but especially when you're paying the luxury tax, I think that kind of stuff matters quite a bit. And I think that the production you're getting or lack thereof, you can replace that pretty easily with another waiver claim, with Seth Johnson type. Like, I don't think the drop off's that big between Seth Johnson right now and between Jordan Romano. So because of that, I don't think he's going to survive on the team past the trade deadline.
Now that you mentioned it, I didn't really think about that in terms of the next tier of the luxury tax, which they're now in because I believe they're in because of the Robertson signing. So I'm actually going to go under now because I think that would be the move here is dump him to get back under the luxury tax threshold and try to avoid some additional penalties in the future. I'm not an expert on how the luxury tax works, so I might be completely off on how that functions. But I think they would, if that would get them to avoid those penalties, which I've seen some people say that involves draft penalties at this point, some people say it doesn't yet. I think that would be something they should definitely do, is just get Romano out of here to avoid those penalties. I really do not like the idea of losing draft position.
As far as I'm aware, they're not at the point that they're losing draft picks yet.
Okay.
The Robertson signing didn't take them above that tier, but it's close. Like, depending on who they get at the trade deadline now, they very well could end up over that tier. And I agree with you that should be avoided, especially since a lot of the first round picks the Phillies have made recently have been pretty exciting ones. And second round, third round too. I don't really want to lose those picks. The next one I got for you, this is based on Baseball Reference. They are predicting that the Phillies are going to go 89.5 and 72.5 this year. So they're projecting the Phillies to get 89.5 wins. Are you taking over or the under on that win total for the Phillies?
So if the Phillies played at a 500 pace for the rest of the year, they'd have about 88 wins in the season. So basically Baseball Reference is predicting that they're going to go about 500 the rest of the season.
Yeah, 33.5 to 29.5.
Yeah, I don't see that, this rotation. The stretch they've been on, it's kind of rough, but they've been losing a lot of 1 to 2 run games. It's not like they're getting blown out of the water in these games. And yeah, that did happen at the start of the stretch last year. But I'm not a superstitious person that believes like, oh, this happened last year, it means it's going to happen this year. I'm an optimist. I think they're going to finish over that. I think it's going to be 93 to 95 wins for them. I don't really think they're going to end up as, a sub 90 win team.
I'm over 2. I'm at 92. And that's the number that I have in my head for this team right now. I think they're a 92 win team. So we're pretty close there. We're both over. And the last one that I have today is the Phillies come in, over or under 1.5 place in the NL East. Pretty much, are they winning the NL East or not?
I'm going to say they are. I want to say that they are. I think a lot of the Mets' early season success was a load of bull. I think a lot of their pitchers were, and some of them still are, massively overperforming who they are throughout their career and who I believe they still are. Like, I don't believe David Peterson is suddenly this, all-world type left-handed pitcher like he was to start the year and such. So I think the Mets, it's going to be close, but I think the Phillies still win it out. They're currently favored, I believe, to win it out.
They are
53%. So I think the Phillies win the NL East. I don't think it's, a runaway show like last year. That's basically guaranteed not to happen. You still have 2 more big series against the Mets this year. Those are going to be obviously incredibly important to this team's chances of winning the NL East. So, yeah, I think they finish first in the NL East. Braves are gone, Nats are gone, Marlins are gone. It's a lot easier when it's
Two-horse
one
race.
versus one. Yep.
I think that you're spot on about a lot of that, but where my concern comes from is that I think the Mets' problems are easier to solve in a way,
Mm.
because their problems are pretty much all about their pitching. Like, yes, their offense isn't probably what they all want it to be, but their main issues are with starting pitching because, like you said, it's not going to last, and their bullpen. And I think they're going to have an easier time addressing the issues that are plaguing them than the Phillies will have addressing the issues that are plaguing them. Um, and because of that, and because the Mets currently are in a good spot when it comes to the tiebreaker, they don't have it clinched. But if the season ended right now by a pretty wide margin, the Mets would win that season tiebreaker against the Phillies. I will go with the Mets. I don't feel great about it. I think the Phillies are probably going to end up as your number one wild card, my guess. But I think the Mets are just going to barely squeeze out the division over the Phillies.
Well, just the way we won it, because we all know that you can't win a playoff series with a bye, as we've all been told. So you got to play in that wild card series to get that crucial playoff momentum going.
I actually think
So,
the NL East winner is not going to get a bye. I think the byes are going to go to the Cubs
dang,
and the Dodgers.
yeah. Just a side note, it's shocking how good the Cubs are this year to me. I did not expect them to take this large of a sort of step forward as they have. They've shown signs that they were ready to, but they've just been outstanding this year. It's been crazy.
Kyle Tucker, right? He's
Kyle
amazing.
Tucker, Pete Armstrong. That's like, yeesh.
They
I would
are.
love Kyle Tucker this offseason.
I would too. I don't think it's going to happen, but
I
it would
wish.
be perfect. So that's all I had today. But Giles, do you have anything else that you wanted to say before we ended up the episode for the day?
So just a couple notes on minor league guys before we sign off here. And obviously, I'm not going to go through everybody, but Arun Escobar getting promoted to, I think it was, high A ball. That was really exciting for me. Hopefully some teams are taking sort of decent. He's high A, so his interest is probably limited. It's capped at a certain point just because of the nature of where he is in the organization. But hopefully increasing his trade value by continuing to progress this year. Dante Nori has been just unbelievable this last month or so. I think he's an OPS over 900 right now in low A ball in Clearwater, and he was well under 700 like about halfway through the season, and now he's around 730. So he's been white hot. And for those who don't know, Dante Nori was their first round pick outfielder from last season, and kind of clowned on a lot because he was graded like 60th best player in the draft or something, and they picked him in the first round. Sort of an underslot pick. So it's really cool seeing him get hot again. Eduardo Tate has cooled off a lot since
He just got
his
promoted
white
to
hot.
high A.
He did. I did not see that. That's very exciting for me. But an 18-year-old getting to high A ball is pretty insane.
Big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. He's still got tons of potential. He's encountering inevitable growing pains. He's playing people who are a lot older than him. So there's really nothing to be concerned about there. Just watch him, hope he keeps progressing, getting better at things he needs to get better at. Aiden Miller is a bit of a concern for me, but it's not a massive concern for me yet. One little bump season along the way isn't the end of the world in the minor leagues. It doesn't mean your guy's going to be a bust. And he hasn't been horrifyingly bad, but he's definitely been disappointing in Double A. His power really hasn't been there. And I'm not really watching the Double A games, but I am guessing, based on what I've heard with his scouting about his swing and the nature of going to Double A, that he's having issues with some higher velocity in Double A right now. He needs to make some swing adjustments. So not the end of the world, but something to definitely keep an eye on. I'm still pretty unimpressed with Justin Crawford in AAA. I don't think Justin Crawford lands as big of a bucket as I think a lot of the people, especially in the subreddit, think he's going to land in terms of like at the deadline getting a player for him. Them not bringing up Justin Crawford has nothing to do, by the way, with the Phillies trying to save his trade potential or something, or save his trade value. Every other team can see that he pounds the ball into the ground an obscene amount of the time. Every other team can see that he doesn't make a ton of hard contact into gaps. Every other team is able to see that his defense is pretty poor for center field. So, and I don't think he's an immediate upgrade for center field for them right now. I really don't. Major league pitchers are going to be better at getting ground balls. Their defenses are going to be better at fielding those and getting outs on them. So I'm very unimpressed with Crawford right now. We talked about this briefly with Painter, but not super concerned. Next year is really the test for me. Him just coming back and throwing a decent amount of innings this year and being healthy is really the big thing for me. And it's encouraging to see that he's been able to be healthy and his stuff is still there. That was the big thing that I think everybody gets concerned about after a Tommy John injury is it going to be like a Noah Syndergaard where his velocity just evaporates, or like a Walker Buehler where the velocity is no longer high 90s. It's, low to mid 90s. And it isn't that with Painter right now. And he's still very young because they drafted him out of high school. So he's not about to turn 25 or something. He's still like, I think 22 or 23 right now. So not concerned on Painter. Next year's a test for him. I think that's about it for me for the minor league guys I want to talk about. Griffin Burkholder has been a bit of a disappointment, but he was kind of an injury type pick where it's, sky high potential, but a lot of injury concerns. And he's lived up to those injury concerns. That's been disappointing. But yeah, I think that's about all I want to talk about in terms of the minor leagues. If there's anything you want to add on, you can feel free to.
No, I don't really have anything to really add on here, but I appreciate the color there, and we'll see what happens with all these prospects. It's exciting. The Phillies system's in the best spot that they've been in a long time, I think. So I'm excited to see.
I saw USA Today rank them as like top 5 in the MLB right now. I got a link to the article and I was scrolling down the page. I was like, where the hell are the Phillies located at? And it was like, they're top 5. I didn't expect that.
It's crazy to see, right? It's not the way that it was, recently. Certainly, not for a long time have the Phillies had a top 5 farm system according to anybody. So I'll take it. And thank you for being on the podcast today, Giles. I appreciate you being here, and I'm sure everyone's really happy that you were here today. So I'll end up the podcast here, but I hope everybody has a great day. This will be coming out in the middle of the series against the Red Sox, so hopefully that series is going well, and I don't have anything to be upset about. But I will talk to you all very soon. So have a good one.